Okay, welcome back. Hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. Today we're going to continue our RBT exam practice question series where we're going through 10 RBT exam questions and I'm breaking them down how I think you should think about them when you take your actual exam. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please check out our website, rbtexamreview.com. We offer 3 practice exams, a task list study guide. Our combo pack comes with everything. It's our best deal. And of course, we have our competency study guide as well. So any questions or comments, leave them below. I'm happy to help. Other than that, keep working hard. And let's get to the questions. Question 1. Cyrus, a 4-year-old with severe ADHD, does not respond to others when they talk to him. Sometimes it takes up to 20 seconds for Cyrus to acknowledge someone when they are speaking to him. What would be the most appropriate measurement to target in relation to Cyrus responding to someone who is attempting to engage with him? Okay, so we have a measurement question here. We're trying to determine what sort of measurement we need. So when you are picking a measurement, the first thing you need to do is identify your target behavior. Okay, either you're going to increase it or reduce it, but we need a target behavior to measure. So what behavior are we looking at? Well, we're looking at Cyrus's responding, okay? He doesn't do it and it takes too long. So sometimes it takes up to 20 seconds for Cyrus to acknowledge someone when they speak to him. If we want to reduce that, right, this 20-second mark, what measurement would we need to use? Okay, frequency, duration, latency, or IRT. Well, frequency, we're not trying to count how many times Cyrus responds, right? We are trying to figure out how we can reduce the time it takes Cyrus to respond, okay? Duration, we're not looking at the length of Cyrus's response, okay? We're trying to reduce the time between the SD and Cyrus responding, right? So there's a very specific type of measurement for that, and that is latency. Latency is the time between the SD, okay, and the response. And then inter-response time, of course, is the time in between 2 responses. So if we were measuring the time from Cyrus's first response to a second response, we might use IRT, but we are measuring the time from the SD, which is the person talking to Cyrus, to the response, which is Cyrus actually responding. So our answer here is C, latency. What is an advantage of permanent product recording? Okay, so we know permanent product recording measures the outcome or the product or whatever the behavior produces and makes determinations that way. So we know, what do we know about permanent product? We know we don't have to actually observe the behavior, okay? It's good for measuring outcomes, right? So what is an advantage, right? Let's look at our answer choices. A, it can be used for all behaviors in a number of settings, right? Well, can it be used for all behaviors? Not necessarily, right? The key here is the behavior produces something. If the behavior doesn't produce anything that persists after the behavior stops, well, we can't use permanent product for that. So A is not right. B, it can reduce the duration of tantrums. Permanent product doesn't deal with duration, right? We might look at what happens as a result of the tantrum. Are things destroyed, right? Are things thrown around the room? But we're not looking at the length of a tantrum with permanent product, okay? We're not even observing that tantrum, right? We are observing and recording what happens as a result of that tantrum. C, you only need to observe the client for a few minutes. Again, permanent product, we aren't actually observing the client, right? Now you might be, okay, but it's not an advantage to observe the client, right? One of the advantages of permanent product is it's not a requirement. That's the whole idea, right? Like where we were looking at what happens as a result of the behavior, meaning we don't actually have to see the behavior happen as long as it produces something. So what is the advantage of permanent product recording? Observing the behavior is not a requirement of product recording. Philip elopes from the table when he is given a plate of vegetables. Which of the following would be the best definition of eloping? So think about what we need in behavior definitions. They need to be observable. They need to be measurable, clear, okay, concise, complete, right? Include as much information as possible. So anybody who reads that behavior definition knows exactly what they are looking for. So let's look at A. When given a non-preferred item, Philip will run away from the table. Okay, so not bad, right? We have an antecedent. We can picture running away from the table, okay? A isn't terrible, right? If there's not a better answer, A would be acceptable. But on the RBT exam, what are we doing? We are looking for the best answer. We need to read all of our answer choices and find the best answer choice. So A is okay, but don't just stop at A and move on. Read all of your answer choices. B, when Philip's sister enters the room, Philip will begin throwing items at her in order to gain attention. Well, this has nothing to do with the plate of vegetables, right? This is about Philip's sister. Remember, when we have a target behavior, make sure your behavior definition reflects that target behavior so we don't end up measuring something else. B might be an issue, but that's not what we're focused on right now, right? We're focused on the eloping when he's given a plate of vegetables. So B is wrong. C, elopement functions as a means of escape for Philip. Okay, that's fine. That's fine to include, but does that tell us anything about the actual behavior? No, that just tells us why the behavior is occurring. We need to know what the behavior looks like, maybe some antecedents, right? What happens after the behavior. C is simply just the function. That's not enough, okay? A is better than C, right? Because at least A gives us some antecedents and the actual description of the behavior. And then D, when given a non-preferred item, Philip will exit his chair and leave the table without permission. This behavior functions as escape. Okay, this is great, right? We have a function, we have a antecedent, and we have a description of the behavior, okay? Now they can always be better, but comparatively to the rest of the answer choices, D is by far the best, okay? So which of the following would be the best definition of eloping? D, when given a non-preferred item, Philip will exit his chair and leave the table without permission. This behavior functions as escape. Lucy is starting to misbehave in school. She was sent to the principal's office twice last week. When she got home today, her mom told her if she does not start behaving, Santa will only bring her coal this year for Christmas. What is mom establishing? All right, so common parenting strategy, right? Blame Santa, okay? Santa's watching. What is this called? What is mom establishing? Well, let's analyze it. Lucy's misbehaving. She got home today. Mom said, if you don't behave, if you don't start behaving, then Santa will only bring you coal. What's the key word? What are the key words in that phrase? If and then. What do we know about if then statements? What do we know about first then statements? First you behave, then Santa brings presents. We know that's called what? Is that an antecedent? Well, no. If anything, it's going to be a consequence, right? Santa's only going to bring her coal. Was that a punishment? We don't know. What reaction will she have? It's unclear. We don't know until it happens. So we cannot label, just because it's a consequence, we can't label it as necessarily a punishment. What about a contingency? Well, what's a contingency? A contingency is an if-then statement. Lucy's mom says, if you do not behave, Santa will then bring you coal. That is an if-then statement. Lucy's mom is establishing a contingency. And then D, a behavior plan. Maybe this is part of a behavior plan, but there's no comprehensive behavior plan here, okay? This is simply one small piece of an intervention. It's simply a contingency to try to encourage Lucy to behave at school. Sophia is learning to speak English through a private tutor. The tutor will present Sophia with a picture of an item and ask Sophia to label the item. The tutor then presents different pictures of the same item and asks Sophia to label the item. What is the tutor attempting to teach? Okay, so that's kind of convoluted, so think about it a little bit. What is happening? Sophia is learning to speak English. Sophia is shown a picture of an item and she labels the item. So the response is what? Labeling the item. The tutor then presents different pictures of the same item and tells Sophia to label them. So the response, does the response change or does the response stay the same? The response stays the same. What changes? The stimuli. So different pictures, okay, different stimuli, same response, right? What is the tutor teaching? Response generalization, stimulus generalization, MANS, or incidental teaching? Well, we know incidental teaching is naturalistic teaching. This is not natural, okay? This is very contrived. C, MANS, he's not teaching any request, right? So C and D are out. That leaves us with A, response generalization, and B, stimulus generalization. What is our trick for response and stimulus generalization? Ask yourself, are there more than one response or are there more than one stimulus? okay? In this case, we have a single response and multiple stimuli. Therefore, we are looking at stimulus generalization. When you have a single stimuli and multiple responses, you have response generalization, okay? Sophia's tutor is attempting to teach Sophie to generalize this response across stimuli. Behavior change often involves reducing or removing a behavior that serves a purpose for an individual. When we reduce or remove a behavior, what must we do as well? Okay, so this is a little more high level. You might not know this, okay? It's not necessarily your duty, I guess, to know this, but I think it's important to understand this concept, and I think it's going to help you understand other concepts as it relates to differential reinforcement and that sort of thing. So when we reduce or remove a behavior, we're taking away a response that serves a function for an individual. Okay, so if you have a client who hits other people in order to gain access, and we take away or reduce that behavior of hitting, you've taken away that client's ability to gain access. What do you need to do now? You need to teach a replacement behavior, okay? And this should be in all of your treatment plans. If you're ever reducing a behavior and not focusing on another behavior increase, something is off. You need to bring that to your BCBA's attention. So when we reduce or remove a behavior, we must try to teach a replacement behavior. We must target another behavior for increase. What about B? Train the client's teachers on the behavior. Maybe, but that's very client specific, as is C, train the client's siblings on the treatment plan. Both of those are specific. A is very general. It's called the fair pair rule, okay? Decrease something, aim for something else to increase. And then D, implement an extinction procedure. Well, we don't know what type of procedure we're using. All we know is when we reduce or remove a behavior, we should try to teach a replacement. Alice is a 6-year-old girl who is learning to communicate with others. Currently, her RBTs will write responses on note cards, and Alice will read the note cards. The RBTs will then ask the same question, and Alice will answer using the note cards. The RBTs are doing what? Well, let's kind of break this down, right? Alice is learning to communicate. Her RBTs are writing responses on note cards, and Alice reads the note cards. What are RBTs doing? Her RBTs are prompting Alice. Then the RBTs ask the same question without the note cards. What have they done? They've removed the note cards, okay? They're trying to transfer control, okay, from the note cards to just the SD. Think about that sequence. The SD, okay, is the question, right? The prompt is the note card, and then the response occurs. Well, we don't want Alice's response to occur because of the note card. We want Alice's to respond to the SD. So we transfer control from the prompt to the SD by removing the note card, and then Alice answers without the note card. So what are we doing? Are we task chaining? Are we prompt fading? Are we thinning a reinforcement schedule? Or are we establishing contingencies? Well, we just talked about contingencies. We know we're not establishing any if-then statements. So eliminate D. We're not task chaining, okay? We're not stringing together steps to create some final behavior. That leaves us with B and C. Are we thinning any reinforcement schedule? No, there's no evidence of any sort of reinforcement schedule in this question. The RBTs are prompt fading, okay? That's how you transfer stimulus control. You fade your prompts by removing the note cards. You are removing the prompts. In other words, you are fading that prompt. Which of the following answer choices is not a required part of using a token economy? Okay, let's think about token economies, right? We have discrete trial teaching. Well, we could use them in discrete trial teaching, but you can use token economies anywhere, okay? I think that's a common misconception, is that token economies are just for DTT. That's not the case, right? The great thing about tokens is that they're generalized, right? They're conditioned reinforcers that can be used in a variety of situations, okay? So this question wants to know, which of the following answer choices is not a required part of using a token economy? A, establishing the tokens as conditioned reinforcers. Is that required? Absolutely, right? If the tokens don't have reinforcing properties, then they're not going to be useful to you. So before you do a token economy, you need to establish tokens as conditioned reinforcers. B, having backup reinforcers ready to exchange for tokens. Sure, right? We need The tokens are great, but the only reason the tokens are reinforcing is because they're paired with these backup reinforcers. Once you get enough tokens, you make an exchange for the actual reinforcer. So B is required. C, setting a reinforcement schedule for earning tokens. Yes, right? We need to have some sort of schedule for earning tokens. Okay, what is that schedule going to be? That's up to your behavior plan and treatment plan, but there needs to be some sort of schedule for earning tokens. And then D, using the token economy for DTT, right? We don't have to use it for DTT. We can use it naturally. We can use it across environments, behaviors, whatever, right? So the best answer here is D. Using it for DTT is not a required part of a token economy. You can create a token economy and never use it for DTT. It's really up to you. Which of the following schedules is most effective at maintaining behaviors? So maintaining behaviors comes after what? After teaching and strengthening, then we maintain and generalize. If we want to maintain a behavior, what schedule would we use? Well, we know we're not going to use continuous reinforcement. FR1 is continuous reinforcement, so A and B are immediately out. D, ratio, okay, well, ratio is way too broad, right? If we use an FR1, that's a fixed ratio of 1. We just said we can't use that one. So we have to eliminate D. Leaves us with C, intermittent reinforcement. If we want to maintain behaviors, we should intermittently reinforce those behaviors on a thinning schedule, on a reducing schedule, until those behaviors are maintained and or generalized. You observed a new behavior yesterday at your session that you had not seen before. When you report it to your BCBA tells you to take data on everything that happens right before and right after the behavior. What type of data does this most likely represent? Okay, what type of data are you taking? Well, you say your BCBA wants you to take data on what happens before the behavior, which would be an antecedent. What happens right after the behavior, which would be a consequence. Okay, so you're recording your antecedent, your A, your behavior, your B, your consequence, your C. What type of data are you taking? Are you taking frequency of recording? Did your BCBA ask you to count or record how often something happens? No, you are recording what happens before and after a target. B, ABC recording. Yeah, right? You are recording antecedents and consequences for a certain behavior. B looks like our answer. C, momentary time sampling. This is not time sampling whatsoever. Okay, momentary time sampling is completely wrong. And then D, discontinuous measurement. ABC recording, you're continuously measuring this behavior, right? This is not discontinuous measurement. You are taking ABC data, antecedent behavior consequence recording. All right, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. We'll be back Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday for a Sunday shout out. Be sure to check all those out. Any questions or comments, please let me know. Check out the study materials, study hard, and I'll see you soon.